Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, in the first part of the chapter, the ecclesiastical writer is giving us some really good advice, particularly in connection to prayer. He starts in verse 1, "Guard your steps as you go to the house of God, and draw near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they are doing evil. Do not be hasty in word or impulsive in thought, to bring up a matter in the presence of God. For God is in heaven and you are on the earth. Therefore let your words be few. For the dream comes through much effort, and the voice of a fool through many words. When you make a vow to God, do not be late in paying it, for he takes no delight in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. Do not let your speech cause you to sin, and do not say in the presence of the messenger of God that it was a mistake. Why should God be angry on account of your voice and destroy the work of your hands? For in many dreams and in many words there is emptiness. Rather, fear God." One of the wonderful things about prayer is that we can pray to God really at any time. We can even pray to God in our thoughts. We don't necessarily even have to be speaking for God to hear us. You might remember in 1 Samuel chapter 1 when Hannah was praying to the Lord, and she was praying, but she was mouthing the words, but she wasn't really saying anything, and Eli thought that she was drunk. But she was praying within her mind, in her thoughts. And we know that God hears our thoughts. In Psalms 139 it says that the Lord knows our thoughts even when they are afar off. And so it's definitely appropriate for us to pray to God within our thoughts, within our mind. But let's not get too comfortable with that. In our minds, we are very, very comfortable to think about many different things. We can think about a lot of things in our thoughts, and a lot of times our thoughts wander and they go in different directions. But when we're praying to God, even if it's just in our thoughts, we've got to remember who it is that we're praying to. We don't want to be too lax in our prayers to God just because our prayers are contained within our minds. Here the ecclesiastical writer says, you better be very careful when you pray to the Lord. It's not a small matter to pray to God. In verse 2, we read, "Do not be hasty in word or impulsive in thought, to bring up a matter in the presence of God. For God is in heaven and you are on earth. Therefore let your words be few." In other words, you need to choose your words very carefully. Let's not forget who we're praying to. We're praying to God in heaven. We're praying to our Father who art in heaven, and hallowed be his name. Holy is his name. He is a God that is high above earth, high above the heavens, high above the highest heavens. And he is enthroned among the cherubim and the seraphim, and they're bowing down to him. All the angels worshiping before him. He is a mighty and awesome God, and we need to not forget that. We need to remember that we are praying to him, and we need to be very careful what we say. One of the things that he brings up here is being careful about what you vow to God. And this is something that's real easy to slip into. You want something really, really bad. Maybe you're desperate about something, and it might be something very legitimate. It might be a very legitimate concern, and something that is weighing on your heart. When you're in that type of situation, be very careful what you say. Because in those moments, it's very easy for you to make a foolish vow and say to the Lord, if you'll answer my prayer, I'll do fill in the blank. And it might be something that may seem good at the moment compared to what you're trying to get the Lord to, what type of answer you're trying to get from the Lord in your prayer. But then, once the prayer is answered, you've got to realize that then reality is going to hit, and you're going to have to fulfill that vow that you made to him. And so, the ecclesiastical writer says, it is better that you should not vow than that you should vow and not pay. I'm reminded of Jephthah. If you remember, we read about him in Judges chapter 11, when he was going up against the Ammonites. And he made a vow to the Lord, and he said, if you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes from the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the Ammonites, shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. Of course, you go on to read that it was his daughter that came out, his only daughter. And of course, his heart was broken when he saw that. And he realized that he had made a foolish vow. And we don't want to make the same mistake. You just got to be very careful in what we pray. And not just in our vowing, but just in general. I know of at least 2 instances, just off the top of my head, of people that have told me prayers that they prayed and they came true, and they basically said, okay, well, I got what I asked for, and it wasn't necessarily a pleasant experience. It might have been what was good for them, but they got what they asked for, and it turned out to be something that they regretted later on. So we just have to be careful. Recognize the fact that God is in heaven. He is wise. He has an understanding that far outreaches our wisdom or any thoughts that we might have. And recognize that He knows what He's doing. And He is in control. And He is a very powerful and mighty God. And we need to approach Him with reverence and with awe. No matter how we're praying to Him. Whether we're praying to Him in a church house or we're praying to Him in our homes, in our minds, we still need to maintain that sense of reverence towards Him and be careful in the words that we speak. Yes, we need to speak openly to Him, share our lives with Him. We don't want to get to the point to where we just don't pray to Him at all because we're afraid of saying the wrong thing. Of course, there's grace and there's mercy. God understands that we say foolish things sometimes, but we still need to be very careful in what we say because, again, we might say something rash, we might say something impulsive that we didn't really mean, and maybe regret it later on. So these are just some thoughts. Hopefully they've been helpful to you today. Thank you guys for listening in. Hope you guys have a great day. God bless.